And then, as you mentioned at the top, of course, earlier this month, the agency did appeal part of that decision. So is there anything, any updates there that we need to know about?
I mean, nothing, that will progress. It'll take, call it a year to kind of go through the system. That I think it'll be interesting. The filing work that they'll have to do kind of comes out in January. By then, of course, we'll know if there's what the presidential election yields. It'll be interesting to see if there's a shift, and they could abandon that appeal. They could continue with it. I think obviously many federal courts have agreed that the SEC's war and kind of Gensler's reign of terror on crypto has been misguided, and I think they've gotten kind of smacked down by several courts with language. I mean, in our case, it was quote, and I'm quoting a judge and saying this, that the SEC has failed to follow a faithful allegiance to the law. In another case, they described the SEC as it relates to this is a grayscale case. They're being arbitrary and capricious. I think many in the industry have asked for many years, we want to follow the rules. We need to have clarity about what the rules are. And the SEC has changed the rules. Their own interpretation of the rules have changed at times. And, anyway, it's frustrating. I've already said many things about this. And I will say many more, I'm sure.
Well, thank you. With that out of the way, do you want to back up a little bit? So, like I said, Ripple has been around a long time. I wonder if you could just reintroduce the company to the people in the room and anyone watching on live stream. I think that people hear Ripple sometimes and make an automatic association with XRP. Can you just reintroduce the company?
Sure.
Say what Ripple does and what its place is in the U.S. fintech industry.
So Ripple's vision from the earliest days, this even predates me, Chris Larson, the co-founder of the company, really articulated this vision for enabling an internet of value, to allow value to move the way information moves today. And so, how do you catalyze that vision? And Ripple started by focusing on the payments industry. And if you kind of dissect the payments industry, you go to where's the highest point of friction. Cross-border payments are the highest point of friction. Cross-border payments today are kind of, largely speaking, built on the SWIFT ecosystem, which is slow, it's expensive. It was architected 50 years ago. The error rate is quite high. And it's kind of like in an age of the internet, why can't we have something better? And so we have been working with banks and financial institutions around the world. 95% of our customers are non-U.S. financial institutions, which is partly a reflection of the U.S. SEC dynamic. But we continue to focus on that kind of infrastructure layer. We had demand from our customers and acquired a company about a year ago in the enterprise custody, and so we count some of the largest banks in the world using our custody technology. But we are not a consumer company. We are an enterprise infrastructure company around kind of all things blockchain, and we intend to kind of stay at that level. As you introduced, XRP is part of our technology stack, and we have always had a kind of a vested interest in catalyzing and investing in and seeing the XRP ecosystem thrive. We think I am definitely not one that I would call a maximalist around crypto. Frankly, I've shared before, I own Bitcoin, I own ETH, I own XRP. I think there's going to be a multi-chain world. XRP is exceptionally good at payments. It's very, very fast on a per transaction basis, and it's very, very low cost on a per transaction basis. It scales much better than some of the other layer one chains.
How does price action in XRP affect your business, if at all?
It turns out it doesn't really. If you do the math, and we have a whole white paper we published on this, but if you look at the volatility of a low volatile asset like a fiat currency, but you hold it for, let's say, 3 or 4 days to settle a SWIFT transaction, it turns out you have more volatility risk in a low volatile asset as compared to an XRP transaction because it's a highly volatile asset, but it's a very, very fast to transact. So it turns out there's less volatility risk. Now, in the traditional fiat world, when you go to a bank to wire money, someone's hedging that currency risk for 3 or 4 days, and you're paying for that currency risk. You're locking in a rate in advance. You don't have to do that in the crypto world because it's so much faster. If the volatility, say, got much, much, much worse, you could have a situation where you could have new participants in the market emerge to kind of sell that product.
So you mentioned just now that most of your business takes place outside of the U.S. You've reintroduced the company. How do you view Ripple's role in helping shape fair fintech regulation here in this market?
You've heard of fair shake.
Yeah.
The introduction of the word fair. So Ripple is one of the companies that is behind a super PAC called Fair Shake. It's one of the largest PACs in this election cycle, although we have indicated, and I think the other, Coinbase has been active in Fair Shake as well as Andreessen Horowitz. We're kind of the three anchor. There's been a few other supporters as well. But, I use the word fair. All that we're looking for is a fair shake. There is a lot of misinformation, and frankly, I don't mind saying it. Look, Elizabeth Warren is out there spreading misinformation and lies about crypto. She will tell you that all crypto activity is illicit activity. The facts do not bear that out. And so all we have asked for is a fair shake. I think crypto should be bipartisan, and the Fair Shake Super PAC supports people on the R and D side. It's been important to me. It's not a coincidence I'm wearing a purple tie today. So we have been very active because we haven't had those clear rules of the road. And I think no matter what happens in a few weeks here, we will have a more pro-innovation, pro-crypto Congress that gets elected.
What have your conversations in D.C. been like? Just for, even before election season, how engaged with regulators have you been? You've been around for a long time. So what are those conversations like?
Not that old.
I'm saying Ripple is
original
pillar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pillar. I like that. I've made far more trips to D.C. in the past few years than I did the years before that. And by the way, I look back on that and I regret that. I think we made a mistake by not leaning in earlier, and we're trying to make up for lost time to some degree.
Leaning in how?
Well, part of it is just education, right? It's showing up here. And look, I'll speak freely in a very private audience. It doesn't help that you had Sam Bankman-Fried showing up on Capitol Hill with cargo shorts and, selling something that turned out not to be exactly what was represented. That hurt the whole industry. That hurt Ripple. And so kind of counteracting that and showing up and representing that, look, we are serious people. There's a lot of people in crypto. A lot have been on stage during this event. There's serious people doing serious things, and the market obviously has grown a lot. And so when I show up here, part of it is evangelist, advocate, diplomat, ambassador. I will also comment, and you and I talked about this a little bit backstage, but it's still interesting to me how the U.S. is behind other countries. I spend a significant amount of my time talking to central banks and regulators around the world. And whether we're talking about Japan or the UK or Singapore or the UAE or Switzerland, even Brazil, no, that's not to mean Brazil's bad. It's just including Brazil. The U.S. is a laggard. And for reasons that don't really make sense. And I think it does get back to this kind of misinformation that it's been, I think the Gensler reign of terror, mixed with the Elizabeth Warren, spreading misinformation. It's like crypto's the boogeyman. And it's just not the case. And so I think it's important for the industry to show up at events like this and make sure people understand how these technologies at their core can be used to benefit citizenry, to benefit businesses, reducing costs, increasing speed. I truly do believe blockchain is going to rewire lots of parts of the financial ecosystem. Ripple's focused on our piece within that, but I'm excited to see lots of other companies here representing.